about the tools that you have for safety. Anyone can share very fully.
Excuse me. Um, what immediately came up is I don't feel safe. Um, my own personal experiences, the experiences of those who are in my race plus gender, and those experiences of those who are in my race. So, being me with my history of trauma, being a black woman, and being black, I don't feel safe. Uh, I'm always on flight. I'm always triggered and traumatized and defending, ready to be defensive and all of that. But if I once I really had to calm and think about it, um, I started thinking about, oh, I've done kickboxing and judo classes, but what what actually makes me feel safe is being in communication with people. That's the way I personally have been able to get past issues with individuals. But because it's on an individual basis, in a large sense, I don't feel safe. But for me personally, it's being able to communicate effectively.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that truth. That I honor and affirm that it is totally our reality as Black folks. And you identify as a Black woman, and as Black women, like knowing that safety is very hard to acquire. It's actually really hard to feel that way because there's so many different assaults on our bodies, on our mind, and the systems that are designed, supposedly designed to protect us, but have only caused us harm for so many years. And so, even in the ways that you're able to still stand here today, you have been able to survive, and like, yeah, like doing the kickboxing and like the self-defense is definitely one tool. But I really appreciate how you're honoring the fact that one-on-one connection and knowing that you have people that you can talk to and that can make you feel safe through conversation, that can in itself be a lifesaver for many people. It has been a lifesaver for many people. Yeah, thank you so much. Would love to hear from one more person. Yeah.
Uh, so one of the things that I do is I'm a visual artist, and so when you asked me the question about playing music, I didn't intend to, but I looked up above my desk in the wall. I just want to show you what's right here. Is that okay? Thank you.
Yeah, wow.
So it's the painting that I started to make of my grandparents a year and a half ago, and I haven't touched it. So when you asked, or when I looked up to them, I felt really deep gratitude for them and the life that they created, um, so that I could feel safe so they could help me feel, and our ancestors in general, who, we talk a lot. I was saying our therapist, so clinically we talk a lot about inherited trauma and stuff like that, and not near enough around how we, if we can inherit trauma, we can also inherit like strategies for survival and joy and things like that.
Absolutely.
Divine wood and so I just feel uh, deep gratitude for that. And that just like the thing has been sitting on the wall untouched for a year, that I don't give another people do it for me.
Mm. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that piece of you with us. And just, yeah, again, affirming the fact that our ancestors survived some really, unthinkable, realities and realities that still live in our bodies, right? And to express gratitude for them not giving up, for them continuing to grow strong, to choose to have children, to choose to raise children and bring forth another generation for us to have a different life and a better life. That is such a powerful gift and a powerful offering that a lot of us, particularly Black folks, can look to as we think about safety, like you said, and think about what are resilient strategies and what are ways that we have been intercommunal. We have really had to rely on each other. And that's with Black and Brown communities and communities who've been marginalized. We've had to rely on each other to keep each other safe in so many ways. And through that, family and intercommunal and interdependent, unit of support. I'm just going to read these, and then I really want us to talk about how do we actively keep each other safe. We're going to talk about a strategy called bystander intervention. Some of you may have already heard of it before, but want to use this and offer this as a way to think about community safety and stepping in when we see some of our other community members, in a situation of crisis or in a situation of harassment. But just honoring in the chat, having food, housing, resources for survival and comfort, freedom from the threat of violence, physical or emotional, and freedom from anxiety. It's so much to feel safe, but for me, to feel culturally, to be able to culturally and religiously practice my identity, free to express emotions without judgment, feeling seen, heard, and held in the specific ways that matter and feel good to each of us. Maria says, I feel safe when I am at home or at work, not in the street at all. Safety shows up when we maintain our peace and tranquility. Being home and having a positive environment there, feeling loved can make me feel safe. And lastly, I imagine safety as an overwhelming feeling that all will be well when I navigate any neighborhood, home, and space, absent harmful and negative intrusion as I live, learn, and love. How poetic. Thank you for it. That's beautiful. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead and transition over to a concrete tool that you can use now to keep each other safe. So when we talk about bystander intervention and why we as CAS are really invested in responding to harassment and assault and violence, it's because we recognize that it is a prevalent issue. Much like Nkechi mentioned, particularly for women, non-binary folks, and trans folks, it's really an issue around harassment and folks who have we recognize that harassment is not just about like sexual harassment. It's also about religious harassment. It could also be around someone's gender. It could be around somebody's body size. It could be around someone's disability. And so harassment is a spectrum, and a lot of it is so rooted in, this white supremacist culture that we live in that puts value on, the person who is the lightest, the person that has the most money, the person that is, the most able-bodied, and all these different things, and everything that doesn't fall within that deserves to be targeted, right? And so recognizing that, unfortunately, over many years, systems that have been designed to protect us have failed us, have failed marginalized communities. And so who else do we rely on but each other, especially in those instances where you see something happening and you don't know what to do and you don't know how to intervene, but you know that you want it to stop and you know that you want that person who's being targeted to feel safer. And so, does anyone have any questions or thoughts before I dive into the different modes of bystander intervention? Cool. So I'm going to go back to screen. Kira shared this with you all already as a handout, and there is a Spanish version that was shared as well. I wish that I would have been able to do like a double, kind of screen. So that's definitely a reflection for me in the future. But This is a handout that you all have access to. There's also a comic that was created by Brittany, I believe, who's on this call, in correlation, or sorry, in collaboration with Layla Raven, who was a former ED at CAS. So there's also a beautiful visual by someone on the call that I'll send out soon. And yeah, so I would love folks. We're gonna go through the 5 Ds of bystander intervention. And as you can see up top, it talks about why intervening the environment around the aggressor can make a difference in their behavior. There's a reason why we talk about being active bystander versus a passive bystander. It's because we live in a culture, unfortunately, of not, of being more individualistic. And so bystander intervention really requires us to care and actively look at one another and say, I'm going to step in if I see something going on. So does someone want to read the first D, the direct, the sentence right after that? I can also call on someone. Oh, sounds like somebody's ready.
Direct. This approach means that you are directly interacting with the people involved in the situation and saying that you are concerned. Here are some examples. Intervene with the aggressor. That's not okay. It looks as I don't want to talk to you. Back off, friend. I wonder if you realize how that comes across. And then while intervening to the target, you can say, are you okay? Do you need some help? Use your body to separate them from the aggressor.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so this is our first strategy. You can directly interact with the people involved. And the way this handout is framed is you can intervene with the aggressor, the person who is causing harm, the person who is targeting someone, or you can intervene with the target, the person who is being harassed, or the person who you see, in an uncomfortable position. And so there's two options for you, and you can do that based on your safety. Some folks don't want to do direct at all, and that's totally okay. There's other ways that you can stand by and still bear witness and still figure out how to stop the harassment and the unwanted behavior. Um, you can go ahead to the next one, and then we'll just, we'll go through all of these, and I would like to hear about how y'all are feeling about these. So the next one is distract, and all you have to do is read. You don't have to read your box, but you can just read the sentence after distract. That's anyone who is willing.
This is Leonard. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Distract. This approach focuses on diversion. Sometimes you can help diffuse tension or in a problematic situation by diverting the attention of the people in the situation. And it says here are some examples. Those in the gray box.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, and so you can also distract. There's a way that you can, kind of veer the attention away, and that in itself can help de-escalate, the situation. Sometimes it can be awkward and funny and weird. But one of my go-tos is the fake friend approach. If I see someone like on the metro, or if I see someone, at the club, at the bar, hanging out, and especially if it's someone who looks like they are in need of support, I'll go up and say, hey, hey girl, hey friend, like how are you doing? I see you got something going on, but I'm here for you. And in that way, you can still like intervene and make sure that that person knows that, and by that person, I mean the could be domestic violence, situations. They don't want to, further escalate it. But, being able to look at the cues of the situation and understand if, you coming up to that situation is going to help you escalate it. That's always, a practice that we ask folks to do, is just to make that speak assessment and go from there. All right. Would someone like to read delegates?
This Troy Hawkins, I'll read it. Delegate. This strategy is useful if you recognize an unsafe or problematic situation and you may be uncomfortable saying something yourself or you feel like someone else is better suited to handle it. A friend, a local authority, etc. Here are some examples.
Great. Thank you so much. So y'all can take a moment to read over the examples. I'll, say a little bit more just for the folks who are services translated. But, delegate is really about, okay, maybe I'm unequipped. Maybe I shouldn't be the person to intervene. However, I can ask a friend. I can text someone. If I'm in a bar setting, if I'm, on the bus, I can, reach out to the bus driver. There are other folks that you can pull in, that, could possibly help. Um, yeah, just I'm sick. I'm on Tuesday. I'll go ahead and read it. If you're not able to intervene in the moment, you can check in after the incident has happened. Here are some examples. And so delaying is, seeing that you may not have been able to stop the harm, but being able to walk up to it and say that I'm here. I saw what happened to you and it wasn't okay, or I saw what you did and that wasn't okay. Um, and also naming like if you have like seen an incident of like police violence, or if you see an incident where you really should be documenting as well, which leads into the last one. You certainly can be documenting, and that can be something that if someone does come up to you and ask what happens, you have that record and you have that ability. And I really am not saying, and we're not encouraging people to start filming everything versus actually intervening. We really are saying that if this is a last resort, and you feel like you don't necessarily have the power to stop the situation, but you want to document it so that somebody is able to come back to it, then that is when you're able to like use that versus we are unfortunately in a culture where folks are more prone to whipping out their phones first. So yeah, just wanting to name and be people around that. And so those are 5 Ds. Extract, delegate, delay, and document. Typically in our trainings, we spend a little bit more time with things and really practice these strategies. And I have a scenario, but I want us to pause and just reflect on what And so just bystander intervention, set of strategies is really a way of saying, like, not only do I believe you, but I am willing to take action for you. Yes. So let's take a moment and read the action to that. would love to hear in the chat box or cloud people's reactions to hearing some of these strategies.
Dealing with them comes a lot of feedback. One of the young people which I was sitting on the staff their program is the friend. And I let them sit the night on my house. And I was like, what you know, you need to get with them. All right, I'm not going to the reason is the young people, you know, so that Sunday morning, I guess it's pulled out a knife and she started trying to cut my furniture. Oh, I couldn't really use this information then. So this is great information for me.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I also mentioned that this is one aspect of I also would recommend refocusing. I'm happy to hear that
Yes,
plan, but yeah, because there's like, the incident of harassment itself, and it's also like our own control patterns of our ability to that causes not doing so.
yes,
Obviously on this call, actually go, would love to, yeah, hear that and have the person have the ability to like know that like how to use certain things people will have these issues and actually completing this project.
thank you. I definitely agree with that. Everything is beautiful. I mean, people talk about church. You know, people like the yesterday. What is she really wanting to do with that? There is something just happened with scripture and she went off. So, like I said, I could really use good information.
Thank you. Have anyone else like to share that there's specific strategies you all have and I know that you can but yeah, I will also share one last question about the strategy.
Seems to be that opposite. I'm thinking that somehow, you want to help people as you want them to help. Maybe they're not doing it themselves, but at the same time, I've seen people get harmed from bad people. And so I don't know what, what you tell a person, is this next. But maybe not the person, but sometimes maybe they pass on to you. Other people.
And that experience is so valid and it describes so much of what it is. I often come across it as black spirit, but also what practices who are deaf or self-taught and engagement. it requires that kind of commitment that to have to think about things that take place prior, you have to take action yourself. Like if you physically can understand or can you listen to say like that, it's physical. Then you guys have to like run. Like exactly. Like because we're you know like you have something that's you know, but like we're talking about those things you know, if you just power in that situation, that is really
I'm a former program, I could easily just go or just the ball and knock it around. But I could see with all that I wasn't passing it on. And then I could see you could just see the whole expression on her face and the body language song. I knew that I had to wait to keep that straight with her whatever. I was never made her sick. But you know, it was all
I think one of the things that bothers me is a lot of people justice, especially kids who live in the and a lot of these people, it makes it like they're cooperating with justice. And the craziest thing that police officers do when you see them around, that's police officers, you take it to them. You know, when you talk to them, you say, okay, so this is what you do. That's what you're going to do. And if you're not doing it, I'm going to call you.
Let me jump out here right quick. Can I jump out here right quick? I was saying, can I speak for a second? Okay, okay. All I was going to say is that I was triggered and just listening to some of these with the strategy kind of because immediately my mind went back to was the last critical engagement because I'm thinking about law enforcement right now, like interrelationship type of situations and domestic violence. My mind isn't there right now. Somebody said earlier that they felt safe in their home, but then I would say put yourself in Breonna Taylor's body. Okay, people are talking about intervening with the police, but the main reason African Americans don't intervene with the police is because they go from intervening to being detained. You see, so the ideas, the one thing that I do agree with is about recording and denoting the actual scene and the actual sequence of events because and not doing it to the point the way you're showing them because the young girl was recording recording on George Floyd being murdered and still the officer did not stop. But that footage was necessary in order for those officers to be ultimately convicted by by public will at this point. Not even convicted, but charged because they haven't been convicted yet. So I'm saying that the main thing we have to understand is that we're operating in a system, and when we're trying to avail individuals and not trying to alter that system, meaning that the police needs to be reformed seriously, as into the point where we're saying we're demanding certain things rather than saying I'm going to intervene or I'm going to try to. Because what happens is then you catch a case. They'll say, "Oh, you assaulted an officer." There's a million different things to wind you up in the back of the paddy wagon, and then you can't get out of that. I'm speaking from experience. So I wasn't really encouraged by the strategy, and I hate to be the devil's advocate, but that's what was triggering me: Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. They had witnesses, and then the woman was in her house in a bed. So I mean, it sounded kind of like some things that we're already doing to no avail. Thank you.
So I think that that's absolutely I'm gonna after that because I think that's gonna dive into our next discussion question. And I know Kichi had something you wanted to share.
You know, so, you know, Number one, the socialization includes a lot of people, a whole lot. So we don't want to engage, which is, I believe, one of the reasons why most people are pulling out the phone and asking. But when we talk about people who have undergone trauma, particularly any type of physical trauma, for me, you know, given my history of abuse, I still feel anxiety when I walk through the roof and get on top. My fear doesn't stop me from doing it, but that type of fear stops me from engaging in some of the ways you suggested. But some of the things you suggested, I can see myself doing, such as being near them and making up a being on the phone saying, yeah, girl, this dude is over here harassing this woman, let them know I can hear them without actually being, not actually saying anything to the person who's causing the harm, but to the person who's receiving the harm. Those type of things will help me push through my own fear, given where it comes from. That place of actually being in a receiver of harm, physical harm. Some of those steps will help me push through that and find a way to elevate.
I may say something real quick. I mean, if we're talking about defund the police and get the police out, we as a community are going to have to face these fears. Fear is a good thing in a way. We're going to have to face these, but we're also going to have to increase our knowledge of what we're doing today, and we're going to get the police out and help one another, and we're going to do these things. We can't just talk and talk. We're going to have to walk the walk, and that's going to be education, Zoom meetings like this, so we can intervene and get our confidence up in order to not have to call the police. This is something we're going to have to do.
So one thing that I really want to uplift is something really powerful that Jackendria just wanted to kind of amplify, which is this piece is that these strategies are not centered around the police and in are in deep agreement that the state, which are police or the forms of authority, make it almost impossible to hold them accountable without more harm or incarceration. And that's actually the piece that I wanted to kind of go back to. And I want to note that we're like almost at time, but it feels like we're getting to like the meat, or if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, the tofu of the conversation. But like, one of the things that always is really powerful for me, right, is that, I know, I remember when there were videos of a particular murder, which is sad, I can't remember which one. I remember a lot of folks' reactions were like, well, now they'll have to do something. They being the police, right? Now, because it's on video, they'll have to do something. And what we witnessed, what we saw is that I think, I would argue, me saying that what we saw is that the police do this, they continue, right, in terms of their own path of kind of terrorizing, some surveilling and killing Black, brown, and Indigenous people. And so as we think about these interventions, right, it is really interesting how we always kind of dovetail it back to the police because that's what we're always told to do. So I'm curious, folks already talked about Black Lives Matter, advocating for defunding the police, abolition, right? What would it take for us to kind of build a world where we're not relying on the police to make Black and brown and Indigenous people safe? And also, and I want to uplift, there is something else, another comment from Leslie. And so I would go with the interpreter, share that with us on the English channel. Okay, so we'll come back to that. Is there any other thoughts or ideas around what
Hello, this is James. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, what I would like to speak to as far as not necessarily defunding the police. I think it's more or less restructuring how the police do their jobs, with maybe more training at the academy for mental health counseling, drug counseling, de-escalation practices. Then when they become officers, go out to communities, go out to the field, they will know how to deal with these different situations that usually end up being a terrible situation. Someone's lives is at stake because they have a mental illness or they might be on drugs. So they know how to handle the situation instead of by force all the time, which is most of the training is almost catered to use of force. So I think it's more or less reforming the police and restructuring how policing is done, even amongst ourselves and communities. So I think this is very important, with the climate that we have going forward.
Thank you. And yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Thank you. All right. Anything else that comes up for other folks? And just noting that like we're at time, but I would definitely love to just make like one or two more comments before we close out and also just make sure it's Rhea and have anything else that they'd like to share that it's a little bit space for that. So first, let me just check in. Is it okay that we just stay in conversation for 10 more minutes and I promise we'll be done? If I get some radical consent, it's also okay if you're like, nah, I'm doing it. All right, okay. Yeah, okay. So, one or two more comments like about what would it take, what do you think it would take for us to have a world where we can necessarily rely on police?
This is Alex. I would like to say a couple of things. 8 years ago, I never used to think about my school color as a black man. Or moving to the United States, all of those realities to store because that's not what we talk
Oh, sorry, Alex, go ahead. I think we just had a.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, what would it take for us to have a world where I would say the police will be very much sharp. I think we're doing it. We started the process of it. That's why we're having this conversation. Yeah, sometimes we just have to like look at ourselves and ask ourselves that question, what have we done? Maybe because some of us are born in this culture, you don't understand. When we come into this place 8 years ago, it wasn't like this. With this whole movement last month, this month, with coronavirus and everything, we've started something. For every generation, there is another. We are taking the leadership from the previous generation. So now we're having conversation on different platforms, having Black Lives Matter, having Black Lives Matter painted on the street of America, which wasn't something that we could easily have before. So we started the process. We may not be where we want to be right now. We may not have all the safety, all the support group, all the countries that we need for people, for black and brown people, for our own people here, but we started the conversation. So I'm very hopeful. We may not get there in my life. I'm hopeful. I may even get by the time we get there. But I'm so happy that we're taking center stage and we're saying something, right? They can't just defund the police. This is something that's been there for like 100 years. So it's going to take a while for us to find a solution. This is what our community wants to do. We want to do things for our own people. Why do we have to call the police when somebody is mental health stuff? Why do we want to call the police when so there are so many things we have to do, but we ourselves as a community, as people of color, black and brown people, we need education as well. The children we are having to become leaders tomorrow, what are we teaching them? How are we grooming them? What culture do they understand? What understanding is going on? So there's so much that we have to do, but I'm so happy that we started the process. Generation now we've started having a conversation. So I'm very, very hopeful. It can only be better from here.
Thank you so much. Y'all got me singing Johnny Hathaway's I Know It Changed. All right. I think Brittany had something that she would like to share.
in addition to like education and other resources that work in this experience, there has to be culture shift, a cultural shift, away from individualism towards collectivism, and around, speaking to the fear that folks named and that I feel too, around intervening. Uh, if an attacker or if someone who was interested in being aggressive toward another person knew that the whole community would be in their face if they did that, that might put up more barriers to that interaction. But that's not the way that we've been socialized and still using different countries and different societies. And so I think as organizers and cultural organizers, we should think about how to push cultural shift.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Yes, please.
Once again, this is Troy. I firmly believe, with this push toward community policing, community policing starts with me, and sometimes a lot of us may wonder how we're going to have better optics or better participation in community policing. But a lot of times it doesn't take, a lot of people think they may need more courage or wherewithal, but sometimes you might need just something like grace or poise in certain situations. And one of the beautiful things about spaces like the one we're in today is that I know that I can call Jackie for a certain, I have a network of folks that as I look around this interspace here, and I get to meet everybody and understand what we do. I know I can call Leonard for things for resources for bread for the city. I know I can call Jackie for housing issues. I know I can call Leslie for Latino issues. So having all those resources in my quiver as I go out here and try to engage in community policing, I know I can be a better foot soldier in that. But like I said, it begins with me, and as we build these communities, our community response to certain things that the police won't do anything, or that we won't charge the police with doing. Like I said, sometimes you might not be courage, you might just be gracious, you might need poise, you might need to count on your network. And I think those things are building blocks as we start this push towards better community policing.
So it is 5:35, so I want to make sure just to create a little bit of space for Kendra and then back to me just to wrap up at 5:40. So I just really want to reflect back the values and I'm hearing folks talking about as we start exploring like what it might be to have practices that don't rely on police. I heard a lot about being vulnerable and naming our feelings, right? I've heard so much about love and big and great love. I also see Brittany saying like, how do we think and act radically towards solidarity and collective responsibility and community care? Well, damn, you just said it all. So all of those pieces, right? I also heard about interdependence, relying on each other, and recognizing that we need each other, not just to survive, but to thrive and be well. So I hope those are things that we can kind of continue to think about and name. Jikendra, is there anything you would like to share just in terms of closing?
transform all of the systems that are causing and repeating, the cyclical harm. And so we also have, I'm going to type in our website, our social media, and this Saturday we actually are going to be hosting a virtual workshop on transformative justice, which is going to be really about how do we talk about how we police ourselves, how do we unearth, carceral logic, and how we even treat children, how do we, like really start to grasp these concepts in tangible ways that allow us to start practicing things on a smaller scale in our families, in our schools, and in our communities. So really appreciate y'all always here as a resource for community safety, and really hope we can talk again.
Any last words you would like to share?
Just many thanks to Kendra, everyone on the call, and also Simon for the discussion. Because you all are just amazing people, both in your art forms. And I felt like this was really rich, meaty, juicy conversation about community safety. So thank you to you both. I just want to follow up on two things. I'll take just one quick minute. So we'll be following up via email about the next Spin Justice session, which is next week. And we'll be doing a cultural organizing project, just similar to how Brittany mentioned, and she's also part of the Movement Matters tool that we'll be using to do some picture taking. So look out on your emails for a follow-up, and we'll also send the handouts and then the information that Jukendra posted in the chat, so that if you want to check out CASA's social media or their website, or even the training upcoming this weekend, we'll email that out to you. And then one last thing, we love being in community, and one of those things or ways we're in community right now is via Zoom. So we're having a tech training tomorrow on all the Zoom features, since we're all having many Zoom meetings. It's tomorrow at 4 p.m. And if you're not on that email list and you want to be part of that tech training, just drop your email in the chat and we'll make sure you get that info. Other than that, it was great to see everyone. Thank you so much. And look forward to hopefully seeing you next week on Discord. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Smoking on the fire, smoking on the fire. Hey man, we finna watch some boxing, man. I'm finna cut this off, man. Yeah, man, I'm a part of a whole bunch of different organizations. That's the Consumer Health Foundation. I'm also, linked with the Consumer Action Foundation. Well, Consumer Action Foundation out there in California, man. You know what I'm saying? Young blood came to the city and got busy. You understand? You understand me? You understand me? They don't pay a brother, but you know what I'm saying? They milk a brother for his information and stuff. And every now and then I do catch a check. I ain't even gonna front. You know what I'm saying? But the Consumer Action Foundation out in California, they just hit me to a lot of stuff, man. Do you realize that grandparents are $67 billion in debt with student loans, and at the time when they were teenagers or when they were in college, it didn't cost like $10,000 to $20,000. You have a bachelor's degree, and so what they were just saying in the meeting, that is not only policing and the domestic violence is going to happen regardless. Anytime you put two emotional beings inside a sealed off space or close quarters, eventually the emotions are going to be at different levels, and they can be triggered. And if drugs and dope and all that stuff is involved, and joblessness and infidelity and all of that's involved, then you're going to continue to have inter-relationship conflicts. And so, I mean, the only thing you can do about that is protect your loved ones around you and say, I won't allow that to happen to them. But in the immediate society, that's going to continue to happen because it's a part of living together. But the police stuff, man, all I'm telling you, man, is get the information, get it strategically in order, like sequential order, and then, you know what I'm saying, sell the information to the highest bidder. They got your people paying up, go get them out, you know what I'm saying? But don't just be like, I'm going to jump out here and run up on the police and tell them to stop doing what they doing, and don't think my head ain't going to get cracked, because they might crack your head, you understand what I mean? And see, I'm an old vet in the game, you know what I'm saying? I hate to say it, but yeah, I done earned my O and my G. So with that being said, thank y'all for tuning in for 24/8 Radio. I would play y'all some music, but we are an hour in already. So I ain't even gonna try to do that. I'm gonna jump back into my afternoon, man. Just found out, man. Team, one of our affiliates. Oh man, I brought that monster around. Big cool scared. Got me on my toe, but hey, if it ain't no vaccine, if it ain't nothing you can do other than go home and lock up, I mean, I've been doing that anyway. You know what I'm saying? So I pray to Jesus that I'm okay, although it could be found otherwise in the future. But right now, I feel decent. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel like I'm contaminated, but hey, no telling, call our partner got contaminated, and our partner got contaminated from his partner. And his partner and both of them monkeys came through my spray. Yeah, I called them monkey ass. Hey, what the hell? You can't open the door for everybody, man. Not right now. While this pandemic going on, you locked down, man. You need to have about 5 to 10 people in your social circle, and that's it. These niggas going to work. Like, you going to work. Everybody's shut down. What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, I don't need to see the nigga for at least a month. That's just my personal opinion. You know what I'm saying? Nigga holler at me a month from now. You know what I'm saying? If you still lie, then we might chop it up. But otherwise, I'm gonna hang up. Nigga, he called me. How you gonna send word to somebody, man? I ain't gonna talk bad about nobody. I ain't gonna drop no name. But that shit is crazy, man. I went in the other room last week. I felt it. That let you know Jesus ride with me. I felt it in there. I sprayed lights out today, so I don't know what disinfectant, but no, tell you. Let me cut off. I done start cussing again. I gotta get that tip, y'all. Hold on, cut off, get out.